How's it going, everyone? Session here. Welcome to a Final Fantasy XIV tier list. Now, what I like to do with tier lists whenever we do anything Final Fantasy XIV related is make tier lists that are like subjectively fun, but not objectively like incorrect in certain aspects. I think it's important to be able to always have a nice conversation about how people feel about the video game as a whole. Of course, as somebody who loves the game myself, I've played a lot of jobs in this game, and I've heard a lot of feedback from people who've also played this game, and I kind of wanted to gauge people's interest in what they think. And of course, this doesn't mean to say that the job is good or bad. I think it's more so just kind of how the direction of the job is currently in and what it's heading for towards the future of the expansions moving forward. Knowing that a lot of the jobs that we have are currently in the position that they are, where they all function on like kind of like a 2 minute, 1 minute ish kind of basis, we are under the impression, from what I've understood, that they're kind of sort of gonna make changes to like disassociate the job from the idea of only being like 2 minute, right? As like an idea. But at least for now, I'm wondering, between now and at least to the end of Dawn Trail, what could we potentially look for with the current jobs in mind to actually apply some kind of change that I think people would be content with, and have that apply, of course, throughout the life cycle as we get ready for Crystal Dawn or whatever 8.0 is going to be called. So like we'll see. However, I wanted to do this tier list to talk about just see how each job functions as it is right now. What could it be? Is it good as it is? Does it need to be given like a buff or a nerf? Does it need like a quality of life adjustment? Does it just need like buttons, or does it need like a complete rework? So I wanted to go through that with this tier list as you see here. So let's go. Now I think starting with Warrior, it's funny because I feel like I'm also very subjective about like a lot of these jobs since I'm very biased, but I'll try to maintain that bias that's just like a little bit. I think Warrior, I think a lot of people will say that it's great as it is. I think that the way how the job functions overall is really, really cool in terms of like, being like a HP tank and having like a lot of buttons for recoverability. The invuln's really strong. It's really great in like every piece of content pretty much that it boils down to for comfort's sake, which I really like. I feel like Warrior, because of the way that the invulnerability works with Holmgang, how the timing is so short, it just seems like it's the strongest tank in terms of survival, or in terms of like mitigation and all that other stuff too. So I kind of understand that. But also I've heard people talk about how they don't like the idea that inner release, having Fellcleave and like Primal Rend and Ruination, all that stuff also guarantee like crit direct, right? But then you don't do the most damage as a tank. Is kind of what I understood as well. So I feel like if I had to argue like a quality of life change, I would say that if you removed the whole like critting thing with inner release, but also increased the damage for Warrior, I wonder if that would feel better for players, or if it's something that people would still want to keep and then be okay with it being like the lower DPS tank because the invuln is so strong. So I feel like if I had to put it in a position, I think that's where the quality of life thing like kind of comes into play. So, which again is, I'm cool with that as well. So I'm not really too particular. I also would, well, personally for me though, I would kind of like to see them add another button that's not, I don't know though, because Warrior doesn't have like too much buttons or nothing, or not enough buttons, but like for me, I play on controller and I pretty much have the AoE combo in 2 different locations for like just to fill the gaps, you know what I mean? So I'm wondering if like a button placement like would be nice, but I think most importantly though, like a quality of life is like nice to have for the job, but honestly, all that aside though, I think the job is like great as it is. But I mean, if you let me know, right, like what changes would you like to see them implement for Warrior? If it needs any, if it's missing anything, I'm not particularly sure, but I love me some Warrior. I love the changes they have into Dawn Trail. The inner chaos button is so satisfying. So I love the job exactly as it is right now. So there you go. Paladin. Paladin is kind of like, so for me, like the rework with Paladin during Endwalker, when they kind of turned it into like a pseudo Gunbreaker, is something that people really like talked about a lot, and I understand that too, and I don't disagree at all. But I think Paladin's also in a really nice spot where the job actually has a really good sense of like functionality as like a tank that can kind of press buttons and uptime stuff on a constant basis. But I feel like its identity not that the word identity is like it's a very cursed word, if you will, being stripped away from its like counterpart from like beforehand, being very similar to Gunbreaker in the current light as well. I don't necessarily think that Paladin needs like a rework. I think if anything, I would I would give it like a quality of life change. I kind of want to see them do something with Paladin where it doesn't have, even though Fight or Flight was first, and Imperator is currently, but it is also. I'd like to see if they can find a different way to give Paladin like a potency buff thing, but not have it be tied to a button like Fight or Flight. Does that make sense? Because like No Mercy and Fight or Flight in my mind are the same button right now, right? Because they both activate like a buff. The buff activates a button and you can activate only while activating that buff, and then you press that button whenever you want to, like within 30 seconds of the actual activation. So like I don't know, I thought about it because if you think about it, like with Warrior has to do like a GCD combo in order to actually maintain a buff, which I think is really cool. Dark Knight has an OGCD to maintain at the whole time with the timer being up, and then Gunbreaker Paladin both share like a thing with No Mercy versus like Fight or Flight. So not that, I mean, I don't want Paladin to necessarily be the job that like gets it, because like Gunbreaker could also get that removal with like changing out like No Mercy and giving it something different. But I feel like with Paladin, you can kind of sort of make it make sense, because Paladin has a button that Gunbreaker like doesn't technically have, although like same thing with Gunbreaker, where you can like use Imperator and then like you can unlock a combo thing, which is really cool. And Gunbreaker also has that with Bloodfest, but like the timing is so different. So I feel like I'd like for Paladin to be the job that, since it's the most recent like reworked sort of tank between the tank so far, I think Paladin just getting that like justifiable change would be pretty cool. I'm sure Paladins are not going to be like the biggest fan of it. I know I may not like it at first because I'm also playing Paladin like with Fru and everything too. That adjustment would be pretty tough. But if I had to make a, like how Viper has, you do the combo and then you can activate like the potency of the next attack with that. And I think like Paladin has it with Holy Spirit. So it'd be cool if you can do something like that with like the Atonement combo or something, that way like it maintains every single value and then you can control. And then the Atonement combo always kind of holds some kind of like positive value, I think is the idea that I was thinking about. But again, I think that rule can work the same way with Gunbreaker as well. So, but I kind of like Gunbreaker as it is, even though they changed the cartridge. But we'll talk about that in a moment. So, Dark Knight. Oh boy, Dark Knight is probably one of the black sheeps that people are not really the biggest fan of, right? So, from what I'm under the impression of, Dark Knight, people are kind of looking for a rework. I think that I've also, even in a previous video, covered what I would conceptually like for Dark Knight to have as a rework. Even though it's weird because realistically, it only got a quality of life update going into Dawntrail, where they removed Plunge and gave us Shadow Stride, but then they also took away Blood Weapon and they gave us Delirium combined with Blood Weapon, and they made both of the charges like 3. And I kid you not, I do love me some Dark Knight. I genuinely do. It's probably one of my favorite tanks to play. However, Dark Knight removing Blood Weapon might have been one of the saddest changes that they took out for the job, that I really feel like was like a little too much. I do like that Delirium has Scarlet Delirium, Column Weapons, and Torque Cleaver. I love that combo like a lot. And again, even though like Delirium is a little similar to like Inner Release, like I get it, but like it's fine. I think the biggest grievance for me personally is actually just like losing Blood Weapon. But then you start to look at a lot of the rest of the job kit and realize that it's really cool that it kind of has what it has, but like Dark Knight's also gotten so many changes over the course of its history that it's not really ever been like really classified as like a rework. They've kind of just like blended a lot of pieces together and like just boom, Dark Knight. So I kind of want them to rework it, but I want them to rework it specifically with the dark arts in mind for how it uses mitigation, I think is what I was thinking about. So because like for me, I think that one issue that a lot of people have with Dark Knight is like personal self-sustainability because of every other tank having a lot of buttons that allocate that, which is great. But Dark Knight seems to be the one that's like a little struggling. Carve and Spit was recently buffed to have a higher cure potency recovery when you activate it, but again, that's like every minute. Whereas pretty much every other tank has a much shorter button that you can pretty much like rely on. And now that Dark Knight doesn't have better recovery now, it definitely does, but it's still little, it feels like it's like a little lackluster. So like if I had to post an example, and again, I put this in there's a YouTube video somewhere in the channel you can check out that like we talk about the literal Dark Knight rework idea, because like it was based off of Xenos' rework and I made my own, which I had a lot of fun doing that. I wanted to make sure that like you can actually split, you can like use Dark Arts to activate different versions of the buttons we already have. So like Dark Mind, for example, was just like a magic potency reduction cooldown ability, so it didn't work against physical. They've recently they recently added the ability for it to be able to mitigate physical also. So then now it's just like a good button to use regardless of the damage. And I think that this is blending in like a little too much for all the tanks. You know, differentiating like a magic tank versus like a physical tank kind of like, you know, it kind of like just like it's getting watered down a bit. So I had an idea that Dark Arts, if you activate like Dark Arts as like a side activation button, you can actually modify the effects of Dark Mind so that it could do magic or like physical. That way you can at least like create an opportunity to like adjust your mitigation and also like showcase that you know how to like use Dark Knight in terms of like mitigation. And it would cost 3000 MP, which would in turn like give you the activation for like a free Edge of Shadow, right? Because I know another issue that people run into is that TBN being a button that's tied to 3000 men, and then you have to like rely on it breaking for you to like not lose an edge. We also covered it in that video also, where essentially there is a way that you could make it so that you never lose out on DPS if you don't fail the TBN pop, I think. So I don't know. I just think that like overall, I'd like for the job to get some kind of a change that allocates the usage of like its mitigation. And also I would get started by undoing the blood weapon delirium change. That change hurts a lot of players, I think personally. Also, I just missed the animation. The animation for that button was so awesome, and never being able to see it again outside of like a level 56 dungeon is like really sad. So I kind of wish that they did that. Moving on. Gunbreaker, I understand that it got of I'm still kind of intrigued by the change. They made it so that Double Down is one cartridge instead of two, and they kind of quality of life it by like nerfing hyper velocity and burst strike, but you use it more frequently. And I understand that. But I was never under the impression that Double Down being two cartridges was like an issue. But again, I don't know, like I don't know why they did that. You know, it must have been something that somebody was like, hey, this is like doesn't feel good, and therefore change it. Or it was specific to the ultimate. Like I genuinely have no idea. But I like the idea that it was called Double Down because it cost two cartridges. So like, should they rework the name to like Single Down? You know what I mean? I'm unsure of it, but I mean, for me, like Gunbreaker is my main, and I'm happy with the change that they did with Double Down being one cartridge, because then I can like burst strike and do it more frequently, which is cool. But I still feel like I would have equally been just as content if it was one cartridge or two. You know, for me, it's like Gunbreaker has been great as it is. I don't think that there's really any changes that I would want to add to Gunbreaker. If I had to really be like honest, like a potency increase on the recovery for Aurora would be kind of nice, but that's so like a minuscule button that people like kind of whatever. And I know that people talked about the Gnashing Fang combo being separated from like Rain of Beast, that way you can kind of alternate between the two of them. I actually don't particularly like that, so I kind of like that you have to actually spend the whole combo in order to take full use and advantage of it, and that's kind of how it is right now. So I wouldn't change that, and I don't feel like they're under the impression of changing that either, because they've only ever allowed you to like double down Sonic Break in between the Gnashing and Brain of Beast combo. So those three buttons need to stay like strictly together, or else I think is really cool, because it kind of keeps the flow of how Gunbreaker presses buttons. You know, to go from like Gnashing Fang to like Wicked Talon is really cool. You know, or Savage Claw, and I like all that. I like that it kind of maintains like that flow. So to be able to start like Gnashing Fang and then do like Rain of Beast, but then do like Savage Claw and then do like Noble Blood is kind of like what? So I kind of like that they keep it as it is. So I think Gunbreaker is actually great. And now moving on to the healers, I'm kind of under the impression, this might be like a little bit of a hot take, so I do apologize in advance, but I feel like White Mage is in need of, I want to say the word rework, but I mean this very lightly. All that I'm saying is, because like right now, if you, the jobs that everyone loves to run in terms of like a meta comp whatever is always Scholar and Astro, right? Because both of them have buffs. Astro's damage is higher than both Sage and White Mages usually, and Scholar's mitigation is just much stronger than Sage's, even though Sage's is a lot more easier to apply, I want to say. So a lot of the times that I've run any kind of content, like a Scholar has always been the preferable choice, and I'm okay with that. However, I don't want players to feel discouraged from playing like White Mage or Sage. Granted, they're like, I guess in some lights easier to play and easier to pick up, like sure, but you know, some people would be like, oh, like healer is just easier to play in general anyway, so like why do you care? Just play the harder thing because like it's just easy and it's free, right? So, and I understand that, but I also think that some people would benefit dramatically from just being able to have jobs like Sage and White Mage be as like effective as Scholar and Astro. And the differentiation between those healers is the simple fact that, you know, White Mage and Sage are DPS-esque healers, whereas Scholar and Astro are buff type healers. So, you know, realistically, White Mage and Sage should do more damage than both Astro and Scholar. But right now, that's not the case. Astro does more damage than every healer. It is the strongest healer. So the fact that it's the strongest healer and has a buff, it's kind of like, oh my gosh. So if I had to rework White Mage, like the only thing I would do is just, I know it's gonna seem so kind of like counterintuitive because like identity, but I would, because I think the identity between like White Mage and Sage or is the fact that they're like, you know, they do their own particular type of healing while also maintaining damage, which I think is the objective. But between White Mage and Astro, like White Mage is big burst healing, whereas Astro is like a lot of healing that kind of can snowball over time and you can get like an eventual like big thing, right, which is cool. So I kind of like that differentiation between the two. So for White Mage's sake, what I would like is that they just simply give it like a buff, that, you know, party buff, similar to what we have with Astro. I would differentiate it like a little bit where it does something like, I think, what is divination like 3%. So if, even if White Mage is, I don't know, like presence of mind activated like a raid, like a party wide buff thing that increases damage, I feel like that's something that can be helpful to at least allow either job to provide a positive like damage utility without having damage be like the factor, you know. And I think realistically, the same thing I would do with Sage. I would just strictly give it a team buff that just lets it be able to like buff the party. I know that that seems kind of like iffy, but I think the only reason why I would like that though is because like when the new racer comes out and every new ultimate comes out, like everyone's playing like Astro Scholar, unless like you are so comfortable with White Mage and like the reliance of the burst healing is like super strong, you know. But again, like otherwise though, like if I had to be really honest, I think that both White Mage and Sage would just need like buffs, right? Because their potencies of damage and maybe like healing in certain aspects is like a little on the lower side, but like I think that's what it like mostly boils down to. So that's what we'll do. I mean, for White Mage, I'm gonna say that it just needs like a buff, but I would like for it to be reworked to get like a party buff, is what I would say. Scholar is great as it is. That it's obviously like this it's the shield healer of shield healers. Everyone has loved Scholar's incredible powerful shielding. The buff of Chain Stratagem and Baneful is so strong, and I'm pretty sure that most parties that I've run content with has been just having a Scholar, and people play Sage. I mean, I'm a Sage I prefer Sage over Scholar, but you know, I know that just the value of Scholar is just so unbelievably high, and that does make sense to me. So I think that it would be really great to have Scholar in the position that it currently is in, but I'd also be curious to know, like, when the next expansion comes out, like, what are they going to do to Scholar? I think that's like the biggest question that I have. But then again, I can also argue that people would feel that there's either like too many buttons, because Scholar has some of the most buttons in the entire game currently. next to Paladin. But Paladin doesn't really matter because there's two, like the two buttons that it has, like you don't ever use it, which is like fine. So it doesn't feel like Paladin has the most buttons, but like currently Paladin has the most buttons, but you don't need it. If I could remove a button from Scholar, that way you can fit something else to like help it out, I think would be like kind of nice because again, I feel like Scholar is in this position where they'd have to like change a button or two or three to make space for future buttons as well. But I don't really know if it needs like a quality of life change of any kind. I think like it's actually fine as it is. So I don't actually no. I think it's great as it is. Honestly, I feel like it's actually just it just does everything it's been doing correctly since like. But the problem is like the change that the job's gotten over time has felt like kind of bizarre. But I think people have been kind of content with it regardless. So like it seems like it's fine. Cheers that. Astro. Now, I love Astrologian. Astrologian is my favorite healer to play out of the four next to Sage. But I love playing Astro a lot. And playing Astro is honestly incredibly fun. I don't necessarily want it to be nerfed with the damage output that it has, because the damage output that it has is extremely strong. It's actually like a little too strong. But I think in terms of like its functionality, job design, the way the cards work is really cool. The all the like little extra buttons that it has for like mitigation, healing, recovery, macrocosmos is still really cool. Sun sign's really cool. I like a lot of that a lot. I feel like, however, I'd like for them to give it something. There's something about the card. Maybe it's like me being like the problem because the the way how you give out like spear and balance now is like a little weird. I kind of missed when like everyone was able to receive like a quality card. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that's kind of like what my thought process is. And maybe this is me like having FOMO because I was playing Dark Knight in like top, and my Astro was like, oh yeah, like you can use a card because like for you playing Dark Knight, it's like really really helpful and strong. But I feel like maybe that's like just me clinging onto the past and I gotta just move on forward. So I think I'm going to accept the idea that Astro is also great as it is, but I feel like there's also I think there's something that you could argue about, like Astro being in the spot that it's in now. I don't know if I want to necessarily like I can't really tell you what it is. I played Astro this tier, like a little bit though, but I love it a lot. Like I think that the way how I play Astro is still the same way how I played it in Endwalker. I know Astrodyne is like a weird button that people like definitely won't miss. I kind of miss it actually now that I've but like it's fine. Like the button was there for like a while, like it's gone, like it's okay. But also Astro's gotten so many reworks, and I think every single time we think that the job is great, we end up seeing that it's getting like a rework in the next expansion. So it's kind of like, oh, well, like they can't really make up their minds about Astro. So the job identity is kind of like set up for like a big question mark scenario. But I'm going to say for now that I like Astro as it is. I don't really think it needs too much changes in terms of like job stuff. I think that it's just too strong damage wise that the rest of the healers could get like a little touch up just to kind of like make sure it's competing correctly. And then I'm gonna put Sage in the exact same spot as White Mage. We kind of covered this already, but like White Mage having like a party wide buff would be really really nice actually, so that it doesn't become like a DPS healer, if you will. Although like Sage is, I would say, more. It's not entirely true actually because of the like Lily versus like Numba and everything, and Psyche and Phlegma. But I feel like Sage is more of a DPS healer than White Mage is. I could be wrong about that though. But I feel like like I feel like me being like the shield healer, even though I had to press shield buttons and like mitigation and whatnot, like my value of being shield healer is going to be obviously helpful and like important for like surviving attacks. But I think I would still warrant the idea that my damage would be higher than a White Mage's. But I'm not too sure about that. I don't know what the idea is. I think they're both meant to be like as equal as possible. Um, is in my mind process for it. But then again, like the way how White Mage works is like pretty clear. It should be more DPS output. Anyways, I think I'd like for Sage to also get some kind of a team buff to that way all four healers can provide like support in the form of either like healing recovery, but also like party wide utility. I feel like that'd be really nice actually, because it doesn't feel good to play with like a white mage and sage combo sometimes, but it feels way too good to play with like a scholar and an astro, right? Because of the buffing health situation. I think that's what I would want for those healers, in my mind. So like we'll see, but time will tell. It's okay. Monk is whew, that job is fun, dude. I love me some Monk. Monk is the melee that I was absolutely unprepared for in terms of it's being like it's like the job that it is. Um I really, really love the concept of Monk at the moment. I think it's honestly one of the most fun versions of Monk I've played in like in a while. I think prior to this one, the one that I loved was Shadowbringer's Monk when you had like the like shoulder tackle grease lightning update and you can do like the whole like stancing thing, but again like that's the past, so like we won't talk about that. That's fine. I love Monk a lot right now. Monk is honestly so much fun. I think it's really really cool. I'm also under the impression though that it's it's like a hair too strong, but I don't have a problem with it. The only reason why I say that though is because Mantra and Riddle of Earth, right? Just and then the fire and the follow up with it, like really helpful buttons to press that not a lot of other melees have in terms of recovery utility. So the utility that Monk has, I feel like would give me the impression that it has to do less damage because it can provide more support. But also the job goes nuts when you have that Brotherhood activated, and I kind of like it. Like I said, I love pressing that button. It's so much fun. So I don't really think that there's much that I would change to Monk at the moment. I don't. The only thing I really don't like about Monk, there's actually two things, but like I feel like it's just I gotta like accept them. Um, is it the leaping opal attack? I don't like the animation for that attack. I don't know why. There's something about that move that just like the whole idea of the scratching thing and then the little like leap, it just seems so bizarre to look at. That's a me thing though. So I would not like if you like that move, then you like it. But for me, I'm not the biggest fan of that button. So like it is what it is. But that's the one. It's like one thing. The other thing that I'm not like the biggest fan of is six-sided star. Like I understand what that button is for and why it exists and what it is and everything too, and I'm cool with that. But like, did you guys know that Monk six-sided star has the potential to do like some insane potency when under Brotherhood? But it's not a good like, why does that button have what it has? The change that they gave it in Dawn Trail, basically the chakram points that you have, if you hold on to 10 points and you use six-sided star, it's almost like a 1700 potency attack or something like that. But like, you don't press it ever, even in that scenario. So I'm really, really trying to think to myself, like, why does that even exist as a functionality? I've still questioned it to this day. I have absolutely no idea. So, like, Monk is still great. Like I think I'm actually going to put it in the great category. I think Monk is great, but I just don't know why that button exists in the first place. I don't like that I never press six-sided star except for when the boss is ready to like fly away or like when you're ready to like kill the boss, right? But I just I never ever press that button. It's the weirdest level 80 button ever and I want to press it more frequently and I can't, and I think that's it. So, there you go. Reasons I know. Dragoon is going to be the first job I think that it needs buttons. Now what I mean by that is Dragoon, okay, let me for the record though, I Dragoon I love the most. Dragoon is my favorite melee. It's perfect. I love it. It's crazy and I'm biased about it. However, they recently made a change with Dragoon with the Nostrand that I actually know for a fact that as much as I am biased, I actually don't like that change. The fact that the Nostron, it used to hit 3 times, and they let you kind of weave it freely whenever you wanted to, which was cool, but you couldn't faint at all in like your opener, which I understand that. I'm, however, not okay with the idea that they put it to one charge. Even though they increased the potency and like it's cool and like yeah, sure, they should have just reduced it from 3 to 2, and I would have been like perfectly content with that. But like they didn't do that. And that's why I don't like it. So it being one, like again, it's fine, but like they should really put it back to 2. And I think that's genuinely it. So also, not, I don't know if anybody else feels this way, because I think I feel this way. And I'm hoping that they change this, because every single expansion, Dragoon has only ever gotten like an OGCD at like the level 10s of its kit. Every single button it's ever gotten since Realm Reborn has always been like an OGCD. And that's kind of why I think that the job is like perfect. But like that's not entirely true, because not every job gets like an OGCD when they're level 10. It's, you know what I mean? So like I kind of want like a GCD jump. I know that sounds kind of weird, but like I kind of want one. I feel that's also why I want like a jump button. I want to press a jump button and then like, you know, because all the jump buttons are like super fast animation wise, and I really love that. But I feel like a GCD jump is something that I would love to press. For whatever particular reason, I don't know how you activate it. I don't know when you use it, but I would love to press like a GCD jump button. Every single jump button is like an OGCD. That's it. So that's all that I'm personally looking for. Dragoon, however, besides the buttons, it's perfect as it is. It's a great job. I love it. It goes next to Monk, but I want it to have a button. That's all I'm saying. So don't look at this and be like, oh my god, like Dragoon has plenty of buttons. It does. Dragoon has plenty of buttons. I would just like for there to be like a GCD. They can, if they literally replace a GCD with a jump GCD, that's fine. Like if they replace like, I don't know, like Fang and Claw and Willing Thrust or something with like a jump GCD, that's it. Like you fix the issue that I have, and it goes back up into the great pile. Boom. But I also want them to change the Nastron button from 1 to 2, and they also fix the job. That's it. So like, again, correction, the job is up here. I loved me some Dragoon like a lot, but I want it to have a couple like 2 button changes. If anything, quality of life, but like it needs a jump button in my mind. Boom. Ninja. Ninja's like so Ninja's so particular for me, because honestly, I think that like the identity of Ninja got changed over the course of time because of the whole like 2-minute meta thing, and not that like Ninja's bad or nothing, because like Ninja's awesome to play and I like Ninja, but I kind of want the quality of life to get reverted back to when Mug and Trick were swapped, or Dokumori for that matter, because like for some history, right? And everybody, I feel like everyone knows this, but Mug and Trick Attack were actually swapped, where Mug was a single target, like single buff for the ninja only that they pressed 2 minutes, and Trick Attack was like the party wide buff or debuff, where you activate Trick Attack every minute and everyone benefits from Trick Attack. But they switched it so that everyone only benefits from Mug or Dokumori every 2 minutes, which again like makes sense because, you know, 2 minute blah 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 whatever. Yeah, sure, fine. But I would like for them to change that back. I've been wanting that change ever since they incorporated the change for the whole 2-minute thing in mind, because I kind of find it more critical for Ninja to have that be the thing that it has, because the value of a Ninja was so nice because of that. Even though Dokumori right now is a very strong ability for being like a 2-minute button, like 100%. But like if we were to decouple the idea of 2 minutes being like a constant thing for the whole entire board, for me, you instantly fix it if you make Trick Attack like the team buff and then Mug like the single buff. Because I feel like Mug, like Trick Attack being beneficial to the whole party and letting Ninja also do like damage is cool. But like when Ninja gets to go like crazy mode damage in terms of the 2-minute thing, I think it'll be really, really cool to see. And it'll give Ninja the value that people kind of have known Ninja to have since, you know, the beginning of time. However, Ninja's still a fun job to play. The Tenchi Jin change, I'm just gonna accept, because I know people were like, "Oh, I don't like it," or like, "Who cares?" or like, "Oh my god, I love it, thank God, because I can move." I'm I'm old fashioned in terms of like my muscle memory. Same way how with Monk, like Monk used to have 6 positionals, and I still play Monk as if it has 6 positionals. I kid you not. It's so weird and like hilarious. So I play Ninja the same format that I do with Tenchi Jin. Like I just don't move. It's just because my controller hotbar literally makes it difficult for me to move in the first place. So I just plant when I Tenchi Jin. Like I kid you not. Now, if there was a raid scenario where Tenchi Jin and moving is like super helpful and it's like, oh my god, like this is so nice, thankfully that they have this, I'll accept that. You know, I feel like it's in fruit if anything. But for me, like if I'm doing any kind of raid situation, like 9 times out of 10, I'm standing still. And in fairness, I haven't gone into Fru with Ninja to like say yes or no to the situation, but I feel like if I did, I would understand why you can move with Sessiion. But I don't care. I used to care for like I think 5 minutes, and then I was like, I don't even play the job, so why do I care? You know. So Ninja, however, I would like for the change to kind of allocate the mug and trick attack swap. I think it'd be cool. Turns out. And now we have Samurai. And like to be very honest, the Kaiten meme must live on. You know what I mean? There's something about Samurai that like it's cool and I get it and I like it, but they've done so many like quote unquote quality of life adjustments that I think that's actually like worsened Samurai in a way that I kind of sort of don't enjoy. So for me, like Samurai visually is a beautiful job to look at. Pressing buttons, the feeling, the sound, the vibe, like Samurai feels incredibly powerful. But it's not. So it's kind of like iffy. But then again, like it kind of depends on like what you're looking at too, because like you know, like I like me some samurai. I like me some samurai, but like at the same time, um, they've made changes during the expansion already so far with samurai that you're kind of like iffy on like why they made that change in the first place, and it kind of just like feels a little like, you know. Now, do I want Kaiten to come back? Like, of course I do. Do I miss? But that's not the actual thing that I miss the most though. I actually miss when you can use Tengetsu slash Third Eye and then activate Satan, and it's like a counter attack hit thing. That was like really cool damage uptime thing, and they removed that and watered it down to just have like a potency recovery, which like I understand that. I kind of think that like a counter system, parry system thing in this game that they used to incorporate would be kind of fire actually. And Samurai had it until it was the last one to have it, and then it was gone. So I kind of think that like I don't think a rework is in play. I just think it's more so like buttons, if anything, for Samurai, because like if you bring back the ability, I think if you literally bring back both Satan and Kaiten, I think you actually do a lot for me personally. To even see like the thing in like Samurai. There's other issues that I would warrant that I'm not like the biggest fan of, but like it is what it is. Like for me, like Tenkagoken being like a circle instead of a cone, I'm not gonna lie to you, like I kind of miss that like a little bit, like a little bit. I kind of like that everything wasn't like a circle. So the fact that like Samurai is a circle now for everything, it's kind of like, oh, but that's just me though. Okay, I would like for it to be a cone. I would like Kaiten. I would like Sentai, Satan, whatever. Because like Zanshin's a cone. Like, why is Zanshin not a circle if that's a case scenario? You know, like that's why I'm so kind of like I'm like so puzzled by the whole thing. Anyways, Tendo is that button is incredible. I actually love. I kind of liked when you can press Tendo twice and then the button animation kind of repeated itself. It was so outrageous, but it was so awesome. But I do like the current version as well. So I like again, I don't care. Like yo, Samurai is fun. I love that job. I think it's awesome. It's fun to play. It's incredible what it does. But I kind of like me some buttons because also like I need Samurai to be the number one melee always, right next to Viper. I need that, and like like it kind of isn't. So it's kind of iffy to figure out like situation. And again, the job balance of the game right now not like in the best spot, but like yo, it's like can you play some Samurai and pull out to the scene and like look incredible doing the thing? Absolutely. But like I'm trying to press some buttons. I think is my mindset to it though. So honestly, like I think for Samurai, that's all that it needs. And who knows, maybe we'll get that. So Reaper is honestly Reaper. You'll have to kind of let me know what you think because for me, like I said this before on like a stream one day, I think that Reaper is the perfect 90 job, but I feel like it feels weird at 100 because of Professio. Perfectio like is it's a communio too, which I understand that. But like the way that the job worked back then was like you would I don't know how how does one button make this change is beyond me. But gluttony is held forever for some reason, and I play Reaper the exact same way that I did with Endwalker, just with the inclusion of Professio and I keep on changing how I say that name. But Perfectio is like a button that one button, it got one button. That's literally it. And one button completely changes how I play Reaper and use Gluttony. I know that there's like a Gluttony combo where you can like Gluttony before you do stuff, and I get that. But like you're not supposed to, I guess, question mark. So for me, I feel like Reaper is still a fun, incredible job to play, and like you look really good playing Reaper, honestly. Like Simulacrum is really cool. The the Executioner's version of the Gluttony combos with Gibbet Gavels and Guillotines also really sick. I like that actually. So I think Reaper is awesome. But I don't know how to quality of life Reaper so that you don't sit and hold onto Gluttony for forever, you know? Unless like if you tell me that like the hold is fine because you don't lose a Gluttony at all, then I'll put it back up here. But I feel like there's something weird about the Gluttony being like the button that you hold onto, or maybe I'm just blind to it and I don't know how often you hold Gluttony. But I feel like every time you double Enshroud with Reaper during the 2 minute, Gluttony is ready to be pressed as soon as you start pressing Arcane Circle. You know what I mean? So I don't entirely know, but I'll take it as it is. So we'll let it be what it is. I kind of want to see. I think if I had to put like a little tab that like needs more information is what I would put there. But I need more information on how that works with Gluttony because I know for sure though. I always use Gluttony after the double communio of the Perfectio, and then I kind of just let it go from there moving forward. So we'll see. And then we have Viper. Okay, Viper is, oh, man, this is gonna be such a pain to say out loud. I kind of need it to be reworked again. There's something about Viper that I like. I don't exactly know. I kind of think that we didn't do it enough proper justice when we got rid of the Dread version of Viper. Dread Viper was cool. Vice Viper is fine. But I feel like the job, I kind of prefer Dread Viper over Vice. Dread Viper is when you can use Dread Winder instead of Vice Winder, and it applies the same debuff similar to like Shadow Death for Reaper. That like red one that I feel like it was intended to use that one the most, and then they were like, "Yep, we like this version." But they literally took not even like a patch to be like we're reworking it and changing it entirely, and then because people didn't like the way how it worked. I just don't think that we didn't really let that job shine before it had an opportunity to get like a rework. So now I feel like they got to rework it like again. But then I don't know how to do that. Um, Actually, you know what? I'll kind of reconfigure the thing. The job actually doesn't need as much of a rework. It needs much more so like a quality of life. That's what I'll say. Because now that I'm thinking about it, Viper quality of life would be incredible for the job in terms of how it functions like pre 100, because I think Viper, similar to Reaper, Viper is a job that functions perfectly at level 100, but it doesn't function well pre 100. Reaper functions perfectly like at level 90. I don't feel that way about everywhere else. And maybe this is like me with like ultimate brain, because like me playing Reaper at level 80 and 70 ultimates, it's not fun. Because like I don't have all the cool stuff, you know. And I feel like with Viper, you have the same exact issue, but it's way worse. Like Viper, like granted, you can play Viper. It doesn't like suck that much enough, but it just doesn't feel good to play. I would quality of life adjust all the buttons and the order in which you acquire them to make Viper more playable and more fun to play in that older content. Because I think people feel like Viper's like a little bit of a drag in like TU Cup and UU. It's like it's fine in DSR and like top, I feel, but like I've never seen people play Viper in those fights, to say for sure. But like Viper does great in, it's like the strongest melee next to Ninja in like Chaotic, which is really cool, and I like that. I don't know how that's possible, but like it's fire. It's great in Dungeons, Trials, and Raids. Like it does the job. It's just like I feel like it, you know, it would like to be. I like to see it function well pre 100 in the same format, and it doesn't do that. So that's what I would wager for Viper. But I'm almost this much inquired to incorporate a rework, but I'm almost more so certain on the idea that it needs to be given a quality of life change. So we'll let the ability do this. Bard, I think, is incredible right now. Bard is currently blown up to such a degree of like, oh my god, yo, like Bard is incredible. However, however, this is a me thing. So don't like I understand. Okay. So like for me, everyone knows like if you play Shadowbringers dots for Bard were like very impactful in a way that like we'll never see it again. Hopefully we do though. So if I had to make a choice, I put it I put it over here, and you basically put back the old version where if I dot two targets, I benefit from the tick on the repertoire from both targets. And right now, it don't do that. That's what I want. So that way, if there was any particular reason, is there a fight there? This at the moment. This Fru is a good example, but also like Savage Raids. No. Trials. No. No, dungeons technically, but like okay, anyways. So like I want to multi-dot things and benefit from multi-dotting things. I think I love that the most. I love that in Shadowbringers. I hated it in Endwalker, and Dawn Trails Dawn Trails Bard is fun. So I kind of forget the multi-dotting thing, but like I really need them to put that back. However, even though right now Bard doesn't have the multi-dotting proc for the repertoire, the job is incredible. I think Bard is like so much fun to play. It has so much incredible value for being the job that it is. And honestly, at the end of the day, like the multi-dotting thing only matters when there's multiple targets, and there's not frequently multiple targets, so like it's not the worst thing ever. But if it did have the multi-target thing, it'd be fire. So is that. Um, I also kind of wish that Shadow Bite and Wide Volley, like you know what I mean. I kind of want to use Wide Volley, even though like it's a old move, but I kind of missed that button. I didn't know that I missed that button. So this isn't also me talking about what I would change to the jobs. I just wish that I think that there's something I'd like to see in the future. Just like again, heads up, because if it was up to me, I would love to. There's one issue that I will cover in a future situation, but it has nothing to do with this right now. So like whatever. Bard is incredible. Anyways, all right, let's get out of the way because I know everyone's gonna be like, oh my god, yes, facts 100% figure it out. Yo, rework, please. This job is suffering. Okay. Here's the thing though, Machinist isn't actually as bad as everyone makes it out to be, and I say this with my chest. Machinist isn't as bad as everyone makes it out to be. Machinist isn't as bad as everyone makes it out to be. However, the job just doesn't feel good potency affectation wise where it should be versus where it is after everything is buffable and given like every potency exchange situation period. However, Machinist being a pure fizz range right now doesn't make sense to me anymore. I just don't think that it works. I think that they keep on trying to figure it out. And I think that as much as I like to play pew pew shoot thing with the machinist gun, I didn't realize this, but I learned this. The potency that Pictomancer's hammer combo has is more with the direct crit than literally all of the tools Machinist has, period. And the only differentiation is reassemble. But reassemble, literally with a drill, chainsaw, anchor, it doesn't matter, does less damage than a Picto hammer, which I think is like so bizarre. So now, in my mind, Giga buffing Machinist is not going to save it. I don't think so. If you buff every tool to do like 1,000 potency, if you buff the queen, if you buff the blazing shot and then the double checkmate, it's not going to do it. I hate to be the one to break the news to you. It's not going to do it. I think you have to rework Machinist. How do you do that? Again, similar to the situation we had with White Mage and Sage, like this job just needs like its own buff. Similar to like how you have Scholar, where like you change stratagem, increase the chances of a thing on like a target, it's like a debuff thing. And how Ninja has Dokumori, where you decrease like the damage that it takes or it deals, whatever, the defense down, if you will. Machinist needs that. I think if you apply that, I think that'd be great. Now, I don't remember what job that this was. I think it was Summoner, where like the personal buff that the job had on itself was like 10%, but it gave that to the rest of the party like at 5%. I kind of like them to do something like that. So like if Machinist uses Barrier Stabilizer or Wildfire, some button, it needs a button to do this. It can't use Wildfire or Barrel. I think that that's going to be kind of like like it's weird. But if you gave it like a button and it gave it like a it gave Machinist a buff where the damage that it does to the target is 10%, but but the damage that the party deals to the target is 5%. I want it to be that. I think that'd be kind of nice actually. That way, you can kind of take advantage of all the buttons that it has with the resources and like use Wildfire in the process too, which is cool. Because I think Machinist like it just needs something to really allocate the whole like pure DPS combo aspect. Because people would argue that like Machinist should be like top 5, but like it can't. It unless you like change how the job works overall. Machinist, I always say, should be as strong as like the quote unquote like the weakest melee, right? Whatever melee is meant to be like low, Machinist is equal to that one. And I feel like if I don't want to pick a melee because that's like kind of complicated, but like whichever melee is weak, ninja or not ninja, sorry, Machinist should do as much damage as that. I don't think ninja, by the way, don't take that for granted. I think Machinist should do as much damage as the weakest melee. Currently, but I just don't know how they can do that with just buffing the potency of the job. They have to rework that job in one way, shape, or another. So like, fingers crossed to figure it out. I'm kind of down. If anything, they can tie it. They can tie the buff to the queen. I'm kind of cool with that. But again, like I need the rework to come into place with the job, like dramatically speaking. So there you go. Dancer is, from what I've understood, Dancer needs a quality of life. People don't really like the idea, and I feel like in fairness they were like experimenting with it. So if you don't know, a lot of jobs where it would cost you resources to activate the button, there's the 2-minute buff button that doesn't let it require the count of resources. So like for example with I'll use like Reaper, for example. Reaper, if you use Arcane Circle and then you activate Plentiful Harvest, Plentiful Harvest gives you Ideal Host, which means you can enshroud without wasting resources. It doesn't cost me like a gauge to activate the thing. Viper, same thing with Serpent's Iron. You can reawaken for free, right? Red Mage, you can use Manification and you can sword combo for free. Dancer is the only job, as far as I know, that like you have to still spend the meter even after you press the button that would hypothetically give you the button to press for free. And I think it's Talana, right? You use Devilment to activate, and then Talana should give you like a free cast of Dance of the Dawn. But like it gives you 50 gauge, and apparently it's very clunky, and people don't like that change. So if I was like a Dancer player dealing with the situation, I would not like it that much. But from what I understand though, Dancer basically Dance of the Dawn should cost 0. Or rather, Talana shouldn't give you 50 gauge, because it giving you 50 gauge, I think, is what the problem is. And so if it didn't do that, I think people would be a lot happier. And I'm kind of expecting them to make that change sooner than later. So like, fingers crossed. But Talana giving 50 gauge is apparently not comfortable, because it used to be a very different button back then, and then they changed it, and it is what it is now, which I think is fine. But the 50 gauge thing is like kind of bizarre to some people, and I understand that actually. So there's that. Otherwise, the answer is great. I mean, Last Dance is like an interesting button, but otherwise, I think the answer is in like an awesome position. So there's that. Summoner is fine as it is. However, it needs fucking buttons. It needs so many buttons. It doesn't. Summoner genuinely doesn't actually need a rework. People kind of argue the idea behind what it was and what it is now. Like, it used to be Dot Mage. It used to have like all these other buttons and whatever, 3-minute rotation. Like, I totally understand it, and like you can whatever. Summoner's only problem right now is that it just doesn't have buttons. And the job was that was like, it was like very, very complicated at some point. It got stripped down to being like a whole lot easier, which is fine, by the way. Like, it's actually perfectly fine. Because you summon Solar, you summon Titan, Garuda, Ifrit, Ruin 4, 1 Ruin 3, boom, Bahamut. Then you do the same thing over and over again. Then you get Phoenix, then you get Solar, then you get Phoenix. You go through the whole cycle. The cycle of that is actually perfectly fine. The problem with Summoner is that like for example, for me personally, um, Lux Solaris is like not a good button. I know that's weird, but okay, Lux Solaris is a great healing button, but the fact that you can only use it during like a certain window of time, and you never use it during that window of time because it doesn't matter because healers are using heals anyways, is just like, you know what I mean? So I've played Summoner this tier. I actually played Summoner this tier. Me pressing Lux Solaris was useless. I never pressed the button because either when I wanted to press it, it was too late, or if I pressed it too early, it didn't matter because everything was already maxed out HP regardless. Um, and I'm only applying that in like a raid trial scenario. So I kind of need them to just give Summoner more buttons. The way that you do that, I think, is actually very easy. I think you simply just give it like, you know how Astral Flow activates like the secondary button to the primal. So like if you summon Solar, you can use it to activate the giant like soul flare. And then you have like Bahamut, which does like Death Flare. Phoenix has Rekindle. If you summon Titan, you have like the Mountain Buster. If you summon Garuda, you have Slipstream, right? Like you have that button. All you need to do is just take Astral Flow and duplicate it and create like a defensive version. That's it. So like if you can like create, call it like umbral, or not umbral, not umbral flow, that's not correct. It's like horrible lore implication. Like call it like astral, I don't know, stance, right? So if I press astral stance and I'm Titan, what it does is it makes the carbuncle give like a shield to everybody, like a little baby shield. Boom. If you do it with Garuda, it'll give like a little regen effect to everybody. Boom. If you do it with Ifrit, it'll like increase the recovery that everyone can have from healing by like 10% or something, right? Um that'd be cool. And then even like, because like I don't know how that button would work on like a Bahamut scenario. Maybe what I would actually, that's not true. I know what I would do. Oh my gosh. I would just give it like a thicker shield than Radiant Aegis does currently. Like I would, if you had Bahamut, just thicker Radiant Aegis, period. Boom. If you had Phoenix, then it would be Rekindle, but then the Astral Flow button would be something entirely different. It shouldn't necessarily be like offensive, but it should be like something. Um, and then if you had like Solar Bahamut, it would be not like the Lux Flare, but it'd be like the other button, like some other like button to kind of like compensate for the thing. It should be like Lux Solaris, but like I would give it like a different button, something to that way Summoner can have all this utility because that job just only being able to press those buttons is like so like it's just so bizarre. So like I feel that way personally. I think Summoner, because like they're in the process and conversation of removing res from Summoner, which I think is great. The objective of it is so that it can do more damage, and I like that too. But that job has no buttons. And having Searing Light and Searing Flare be like a thing is like cool, but it needs way more than that. So I kind of want Summoner to be like sent with buttons. Buttons would be incredible actually. So that's it. Anyways, there's my Summoner rant. We're almost there. Black Mage, man, this is tough. I feel like it's such a weird thing. I don't really like the I don't like Black Mage, honestly, right now. I think Black Mage is in such a like annoying spot as a caster job because realistically it has to be number one, is my mindset to it. The job has to be number one DPS above all things, which I still hold on to that mentality to this day. And I'm not really under the impression that I want Black Mage to get a rework. But like part of me thinks the double ley lines thing, let me tell you right now, I do not like that change. I don't like that they gave it like a second charge of ley lines. I don't have a clue as to why. But it having two ley lines to me seems such a like lazy way to like buff the job. So I feel like, as much as I said the word lazy, I think that the intention is that their plan down the road could be wrong. I think their plan down the road is that they plan to rework Black Mage. That sounds scary, and I agree with you, but I think that's what they're going to end up leaning towards. And how do they rework it? I have no idea because like right now, people don't know why Thunder's a dot. The fact that you have the job having like the strict rotational flow of what it has right now is like a standard, like it's like non-standard thing. Everyone misses non-standard, which is also like a fact, and I think that separates like a lot of people too in like a lot of ways, and I understand that too. I'm also in the same boat. I like non-standard play generally, anyways, and Black Mage being like the definitive job for that was really cool. But I don't think you can quality of life this job and just give it like potency nerfs and buffs and then like call it a day. It's I don't think that Pictomancer lets Black Mage be as great as it is. I know that it's a great job, but for Black Mage to serve as like a fake melee thing now kind of seems a little bit like iffy. So I'm almost inquired to say that I would like for it to be like a rework thing, where the job should just find some way to be able to do potency, but also like I feel like it just has so much mobility, and I understand that not everybody feels that way. I feel like it just has like way too much mobility, so I'm not too sure I enjoy that part either. But again, like that's what I think. I would like for it to be reworked, and if it doesn't get one, it's fine. But if I had to pick though, I think I'd like for it to get like a rework. The rework doesn't need to be dramatic. It can be like mini Dragoon. It can be like mini rework, like miniature. But that's it. But again, what is it? I don't know. If I had to pick something though, I would want them to reorganize how the Thunder proc works, and also figure out how to allocate the whole like Flare Star thing, and incorporate Frost Star. I can't believe that's a button in the PvP version, not the PvE version. I think that's so insane, actually. So again, don't hate me. I love me some Black Mage conceptually, but the job right now, not my favorite. So there's that. Red Mage is the only DPS that's gonna need like a buff nerf thing because of reasons. Here's the thing. Red Mage Red Mage is not allowed to be a weak job for as complicated as that job is. You know what I mean? Red Mage is complicated to play in terms of uptime, in terms of mobility, in terms of affectation, in terms of functionality and everything. Yo, that job is complicated and I like it. But it doesn't do damage, and I do not like that actually. Um Session, you're crazy. Yeah, I know. But the thing is that like Red Mage, here's the thing. They're planning on removing Summoner's Res. If they're gonna remove Summoner's Res, they better remove Red Mages. And they also Vercure, whatever. But they better get rid of Verays and Summoner Res. Or they gotta give every single job in the game a res. Because Red Mage is not allowed to be as strong as it is level 70 and then not have it apply that rule moving up. Like Red Mage is mad strong at level 70 content, which is incredible actually. I love that. It's also great at level 80. But like, oh boy, does it slip down horrendously in level 90 and 100. So I would absolutely love for Red Mage to get a buff at the cost of the situation that Summoner's into, where like it's getting the raise removed, because Red Mage absolutely being like a melee caster hybrid is more complicated than people realize it to be, and I kind of need them to figure that out. So if I had to pick, similar to how I said like Machinist being able to be as strong as like the weakest melee, Red Mage needs to kind of blend in as like the caster that can do as much damage as a melee. I know that we're in like this weird position now where like every single range has to be able to do less damage than a melee because like melee uptime is difficult, but like Red Mage is the only like caster that actually requires melee uptime. Like, what are we talking about? So that's why for me, I would like for Red Mage to kind of like just blend into the cracks of like melee power, because that job is not only complex to play, but it literally requires you have to cast buttons, and the cast timing, granted it's fast, is still kind of like iffy. And also on top of that, you literally have to maintain melee uptime. And like if you literally don't with the job, like GG's, you know what I mean? And like you kind of have to strictly play Red Mage to allocate like a double sword combo thing. And like I said, that there are moments where like you have no choice but to go outside, and I don't like that. So I would say buff Red Mage. That's it. And then we have Pictomancer. And this is going to be kind of the weird deciding factor with a lot of reasons that we can go into. But I think ultimately the biggest problem with the job is that it just benefits significantly from downtime, and even in uptime scenarios, it still does like a lot of damage, and it's not really comforting. You could argue the idea that the job needs to be nerfed, but it doesn't really save it from too much situations. I think it's still gonna be stupid powerful if it was nerfed. A rework seems a little bit unfair because like a lot of people are playing and loving some Pictomancer, and I'm cool with that too. Buttons is fine. I don't really know about a quality of life thing. They're kind of fixing quality of life over the course of time when they had like the click thing off the with the buff whatever. And it's definitely not as great as people want. Like I don't think so at all. So if I had to put it here, then nerfing it would be the ideal situation. But everyone is also under the impression that everybody is like agreeing that every job is going to get buffed to compensate for Picto, which I'm not the biggest fan of. So I don't entirely know, because for me, like, I would argue that Picto is too strong because the DPS check for a lot of jobs is not an issue, and it's especially not an issue with Picto. So I'm under the impression that the health pool that all the bosses have is like relatively correct. Picto just says I don't care and then throws all the paint at the situation and then calls it a day. So quality of life would be ideal to make sure, because I don't think it's just a nerf thing. I think quality of life would be necessary to make sure that it blends in correctly with the rest of the jobs design wise and let it function as it is. Because realistically, Pictomancer needs, it should thrive in downtime, of course, because of how it functions, but it should not, it because of certain jobs that have like an uptime thing, it still thrives better than jobs in an uptime scenario. And again, like I don't think that's fair. Now, of course, Picto doesn't have a res, but it still has all this utility that some of it's actually pretty stinky. Like Tempura Coat Grassa is insane for a button combo that you can switch between like a personal shield and make like a spread shield. That's insane, actually. And Star Prism literally doesn't allow healers to heal because Star Prism just does it for them. And like Lux Solaris doesn't do that for some bizarre reason of all things. I don't, whatever. So quality of life for me, Pictomancer would be the most ideal thing. They should figure out a way to make sure that Pictomancer can like blend in line with the rest of the jobs, because Pictomancer has to do less than both melees, Viper and Samurai, as well as Black Mage. It being number 4 is perfect to me personally. However, it's like number 1 by like a mile, and that to me is not my favorite. So quality of life is where I put it at. And then of course, the homie of as it is, Blue Mage. Blue Mage is honestly great. I just think that Blue Mage, you know, it being Blue Mage is kind of like whatever. But if I had to really like put something into place for it, the answer would actually just be like quality of life. But it's not even really like the thing about Blue Mage is that it's a limited job, and I can't effectively put Blue Mage anywhere outside of quality of life and great as it is, because I mean, realistically speaking, like we're waiting for Beastmaster to come out. But honestly, I just think that like I kind of want Blue Mage to have its own content that it can share with other limited jobs, which is the plan. I'm like 90% sure. The goal is that, because I'll tell you right now, I'm under the heavy impression that Beastmaster is going to be a Beastmaster is going to be a tank job, and as a tank job, it's just going to be able to be the actual tank that, you know, Blue Mage is. I'm moving the ad. Blue Mage is like a DPS job that can function like a healer or a tank, which I think is cool. I think Beastmaster is going to be a tank job that can function as a DPS or a healer, which I think is also cool. So I think objectively, if Beastmaster and Blue Mage can blend in together and do content together, that'd be incredible, and I would love to see that come into play. But I don't have any idea as to how they can do that until they actually like bring the level cap up, because in my mind, what would be nice is if Blue Mage actually catches up to the current level. Like if Dontrio's max level right now is 100, if Blue Mage actually reaches 100, I think I'd actually like that a lot. However, that just doesn't seem like a thing that they'll ever actually incorporate. Which again is fine. I'm content with it either way, because Blue Mage content is super fun. It's just that like nobody does Blue Mage content like on a every single day basis. You know, you like work on the spells whenever you want to. whenever there is new Blue Mage content that comes out, that's when everyone works on it. But once that's kind of done and done with, like kind of Blue Mage gets to like chill, you know. So I think what I would like for them to do, if this is what quality of life is the category I pick it for, is similar to what they did with the Chaotic Alliance raids and like weekly ideas and all this stuff that you can do in your spare time with like field operations, cosmic exploration, all this stuff that's coming out. Blue Mage needs, for lack of a better word, like more content that give people the push and the drive to go do the content for Blue Mage besides just getting the spells and doing the achievements. I think it needs a lot more than that. Would I go nuts over like a Blue Mage Deep Dungeon? Absolutely I would. Or like if there was like a singular 8-player raid that was only available for Blue Mage, that's not the Carnival, that'd be cool too. But you know, again, it's too early for us to say anything about Blue Mage because like Blue Mage is like that job that kind of like, you know, it's just there. So there you have it. How I feel about this is gonna be like a tier list for jobs as they are. Like, how do we feel about the jobs? Do we like them? Do we not like them? Are they great? Do they need changes? You know, this is the tier list. So again, subjective. Don't get mad at me or yell at me about me thinking about a negative thing about like tanks or healers or DPS. I love this game. I love this game so much. It's an incredible game. I play it every single day. We love this game like dramatically. Like it's actually insane. However, I'm learning with time that there are changes that I would like to see them incorporate and add the difficulty back into the game. And I think that they're kind of sort of working on that. But again, it's kind of like, I don't, you know, we got to wait. Oh, it's always like a waiting game. So let's just wait. And I'm cool with waiting. And hopefully you guys are as well. So, of course, if you guys enjoyed, thank you for hanging out and listening to me rant for like, I think it's been like an hour, right? Bruh. I'm so sorry. Because like we like to get theoretical over here. It's actually like a lot of fun. And I hope you guys feel the same way. So thank you for watching and tuning in. And hopefully I'll see you in some next random tier list that we can somehow create for whatever reason. So there you go.